My Lords, I totally support the Amendment 436 on the collection of enforcement data, and the noble lady Baroness Neville-Roth and the noble Lord Jackson of Peterborough have explained well why I do. But I actually am rising to speak to Amendment 437 in the name of Baroness Neville-Roth, calling for a review of police paperwork, and I thought I'd just explain why. Now, this might sound contradictory because I've actually put my name on a number of amendments that require more data collection, and that might sound a little bit contradictory. But actually, I do think we need more granular and accurate data, but that we should look at data and ensure that it's streamlined and necessary, rather than just collected for the sake of it. And I think that in that sense, there is no contradiction. The review of paperwork is necessary to identify and cut out all the endlessly needless form filling that police officers are forced to do. Whenever you talk to rank and file police officers, one of the most voluble frustrations that they voice is the ever-growing regime of paperwork and bureaucracy, complaining that they didn't sign up to become pen pushers. That's hardly what they envisaged when they joined the force. And we've just heard, more seriously, a very moving group on the mental health challenges faced by some police officers. And I don't want to be glib, but when you talk to police officers, they will often say that they're tearing their hair out and completely demoralised because of the amount of bureaucracy that they face. So it's worth bearing that in mind. Now, the impressive multiplication of the number of forms the police have to fill out could be interpreted or indicative of the scientification or the professionalisation of police work, as the bureaucratic regime's apologists would have us believe. But I think that if you look at the duplication of information, which is often banal, by the way, it indicates a stifling bureaucratisation of policing and a trend that's actually, as I've said, a trend that's reiterated by officers as impeding their ability to respond to crime or engage in proactive crime solving. I just wanted to use one example that I had myself. Some years ago, a few years ago, I was a victim of a very nasty, unpleasant mugging, and I reported it to the police, as one does. And they were hyperactive in their response, in as much as I got a very nice letter as a victim, reassuring me that they were there for me as a victim. I got a form asking me to fill in whether I'd had the right kind of support as a victim. I even had a follow-up phone call to find out why I hadn't filled out my form and to make sure I was okay. The problem was that at no point did anyone visit me in the sense of attempting to apprehend the person who had committed the mugging. That never came up. It was all about my feelings about being a victim of crime rather than solving the crime. And imagine how much paperwork went into that. I was bemused by that, but infuriated as well. I think we would like this review to ask how this paperwork has proliferated. Certain people argue that the process-driven approach to policing is created by risk aversion. In fact, the police covering their own backs, potentially. It might be that it's an obsession with communication. There's certainly a lot of press releasing done and tweets put out and so on. The main thing, I suppose, is that we have to get to the bottom of what's creating it. I do think, and there's a discussion later in the group on this, that a lot of the work generated is not got anything to do with core policing. So when I've talked to police officers I know, they are engaged in a wide range of activity related to equality, diversity and inclusion initiatives that actually are also bureaucratic in terms of the kind of things that they have to do. We heard the other day in a previous group about non-crime hate incidents, how many hours are spent investigating those, but there's also a great deal of paperwork being generated by that, and hopefully we've seen the back of them. And perhaps, in fact, this amendment is kicking an open door here, and I'm hoping for a positive response from the Noble Lord the Minister, because the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has made similar points And it does seem to me that cutting red tape is a part of what the Home Office is trying to do. So I'm delighted about that. Just a couple of reservations I've got. I'm slightly worried that the solution for cutting red tape that's been put forward is a greater use of AI. Now, I'm all for sensible use of technology, but I just want to note that the West Midlands Police Force recently took a shortcut and cut back on a lot of hours of paperwork that would have been wasted in a proper investigation in relation to the Maccabi Tel Aviv football game with Aston Villa. But the problem with that shortcut and paper-saving exercise was, as a consequence, they came up with a non-existent football match which to justify the banning of the Israeli fans, as we know. And in fact, recent research by businesses has shown that for every 10 hours of time apparently saved by the use of AI, 4 hours are used checking errors and fact-checking AI output, and they've had to bring in extra staff to do that particular type of work. So, I agree, and finally, I agree with the noble Baroness Neville-Rolfe on her reservations about the licensing of police officers. I'm afraid that does fill me with horror. Credentialism is notorious for being more bureaucratisation, and if you want any evidence, just look at the university sector and what's happening in certain sectors on that.